There's a scene in the first episode of a show called The Marvelous Miss Maisel, which is about a stand-up comedian in like the 50s or something. And she meets Lenny Bruce, one of the most famous actual stand-up comedians of that time. And she asks him, do you love stand-up comedy? And he gives her this humongous list of reasons why you shouldn't. And then she says, but do you love it? And he goes like this. It's kind of how I feel about Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's The Avengers, which, God, I do not like that name. Avengers Assemble, that should have been the name of the game. Anyway, the game has a bunch of problems. It's pretty buggy. Some of the costumes don't look great. While I think the variety of heroes is good, the variety of villains is kind of lacking. Like, there's really only 2 that you play more than once outside of the story that aren't just big ships. Not that I don't love Warship. Anyone that watches my streams, twitch.tv/NandoVMovies, knows Warship is great, and we should never disrespect that classic comic character, Warship. This is an inside joke from my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/NandoVMovies. Go follow and subscribe. There's microtransactions. The game kind of exists in this weird space where it's a little bit like the movie Avengers, but not enough like the movie Avengers to feel like the movie Avengers, but not different enough from the movie Avengers to feel like its own thing, so it's kind of right in the middle. Also, it's grindy, which means it's kind of repetitive on purpose so that you can build up your character. But you've heard that before. There are lots of YouTube videos from other YouTubers, game reviewers, media reviewers, whatever. They're talking about the Avengers' problems. And listen, if you've played this game and you don't like it and you're just like, it's not for me, that's fine. You're not wrong. This isn't me trying to tell you that you're wrong. I just want to talk about my experiences and what I like about it. Because bugs get fixed. A bunch of them already have. And the game gets balanced over time. New heroes and villain types and locations will be added to the roster. It seems like there's a pretty solid roadmap, although they haven't shown it to us yet, that includes Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, War Machine. Some of that has come from leaks, but still it seems pretty accurate. And you assume all of those heroes will come with their own villain. And it's all free, which is pretty cool. And once the game is less repetitive, the grindy stuff feels like less of a grind. Even though you're doing similar missions over and over again, there's a bigger variety of missions, so it's not so repetitive. Now you can argue whether or not it's a good thing that the game was released in that state, with bugs and without a lot of enemy types and stuff like that. I tend to expect less from live service games like this and a Destiny type game than from a story-driven single-player game like Spider-Man or Batman Arkham, whatever. These games are built to evolve over time, so I tend to give them a little bit more grace in that area. But the core of the game is awesome. Each of the Avengers has their own play style, so when you're playing a level, you're kind of forced to think about it differently depending on which Avenger you're playing as, which makes even the repetitive parts a little less repetitive. It lends itself well to multiplayer missions where everyone jumps into a big map and everyone has different tasks to do based on what their characters are good at. Like Iron Man flies in and takes out the lasers. It's Hulk's job to kind of deal with most of the bigger enemies in the middle, and he's reviving people because he's kind of the tank. That's a lot of fun, and that's a big part of the Avengers experience. Like, that is important that they got that part right. And the big moments feel big. Iron Man getting the Hulk Buster is awesome. A lot of the finishers are really cool. Kamala Khan embiggening. Black Widow turns into Darth Maul, which is still cool and big, and she has that takedown where she spins around your head, which is fun. Pinning an enemy with Mjolnir is incredibly satisfying, and the story of the game is filled with these grand cinematic moments where the Hulk chases Kamala Khan through the helicarrier, or Thor uses the Bifrost to kill a big giant robot. Those big moments like that where an Avenger is around you doing something cool and you just see like the hammer fly through and pin an enemy that you're already fighting is really fun. Although Thor does tend to steal a lot of kills that way, but whatever. But even though those parts of the game rule, that's not what won me on Marvel's Avengers. I don't know if it's just this year, but the story really got me. The week this game was released, a clip circulated on Twitter from one of the first bits of the game where a young Kamala Khan stands up to some bullies and she uses Captain America / Mark Twain's "No You Move" speech, and it got a lot of attention for being cringy, and that's why it got shared, was people making fun of the game for that reason, which, like, first off, that clip takes place 5 years before the core game, where Kamala Khan is 16, I believe, which means she's 11 at that point in time. And I don't know about you, but 11-year-old me was very cringy, and quoting Captain America to bullies is the exact kind of thing that I would do that I think is cool in the moment and would look back on and be like, oh my. And then second, the clip on Twitter cuts the scene kind of in half, and the second half of the scene is really cool. Captain America comes up and tells Kamala Khan she's brave and he's really nice and earnest. He gives her a comic book. He's read her story because he reads all the stories. Like, this isn't exactly like the Captain America from the movies, but it's still very much Captain America, like, gets the heart of the character right. And for the rest of the game, even though he is definitely dead and he dies in that level and he never comes back because he is dead. And that's just how it works, you know. It would be crazy if he came back, but like, if he did, his character would be awesome, and that the heart of the character really works. And then third, superhero stories should be cringy, especially ones aimed at children and young adults. Like, these are superhumans dressed in colorful costumes who give big speeches about truth and justice. Like, why are we not expected to see that as kind of schmaltzy? I feel like a part of why I really enjoy Marvel's Avengers is because of that earnestness, especially when it comes to Kamala Khan. Maybe it's just 2020, but I feel like this game came out at exactly the right moment for me. And I'm not just talking about the more explicit parallels, like how the businessman who has a giant head runs a xenophobic corporation that tries to lock up all of the Inhumans. I mean, come on, Marvel's Avengers. San Francisco is under quarantine and the bad guys wear hazmat suits because of a poisonous gas that's spreading. Like, little on the nose. I'm kidding, obviously that was written before that happened in the real world. But still, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Avengers themselves, the characters. In the game, we are introduced to the characters on something called A-Day, which is this big, giant celebration where the Avengers are introducing a new helicarrier powered by this mysterious new thing called Terrigen. Ooh, maybe that'll come in later. And we meet them during a prologue where they're all acting about the way we would expect. Tony is showy, Widow is cool, Thor has a big ego, Cap is perfect, Bruce is nervous. But after the disaster on the helicarrier that kills a lot of people, including the Sentinel of Liberty, Captain America himself, who is dead and dies in that scene and never comes back, and you don't play as him after that point because the character is dead. But after that disaster, everything changes. The Avengers isolate themselves. Bruce and Tony hate each other. Bruce basically blames the Avengers, but mostly himself, for what happened at San Francisco, and that ends up getting the Avengers disbanded and ends up with Stark Industries getting taken apart. And both Bruce and Tony basically just end up living alone in the wilderness. It isn't super clear what happened to Thor, but when we meet him again, he's dressed in like a Volunteers t-shirt and has a Donald Blake name tag. Widow is off doing something that I won't spoil. Shield, Maria Hill, Nick Fury, Dum Dum Dugan, they have all gone underground. Hank Pym is off leading the resistance, but for the most part, everyone is alone. They're all doing their own thing. And being alone, like being isolated, being quarantined, it can be really depressing. And it's tough to get out of that mood, out of that funk. I think a lot of us have been there recently. But luckily for the Avengers, they have Kamala. Marvel's Avengers is a very hopeful game. Maybe unrealistically so, but still. It presents a Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel, who is not the strongest superhuman or the smartest superhuman. She is both smart and strong, but that's not why she's able to save the day. Kamala Khan believes in heroes in a world where no one else does. She believes in a world where all the heroes put on their costumes, team up, smash some robots, punch the big giant head, and then things get better. And fighting evil isn't that simple, but it kind of is. Like, you need to believe in something that deeply and have that kind of hope that Kamala does if you want to change the world and if you want to do something awesome. Reminds me of a quote from a comic. Doesn't matter what the press says, doesn't matter what the politicians or the mob say, doesn't matter if the whole world decides that something wrong is something right. It's your job to plant yourself like a tree next to the river of truth and say, no, you move. It isn't just some cringy dialogue. That's the whole ballgame. It's the emotional core of Kamala's character, that hope, that belief in heroes and good things happening and there being a way out of this. That is what saves the entire world. And I don't know about you, but I think that's nice. Yeah, Avengers has its flaws, but that story is not only what got me interested in the game, but what has kept me interested in the game long after I'm finished with the actual story mode. It's a love for this world where things do get better because some idealistic child believes it can. The game isn't full of cynicism or anything like that. There are lots of little moments, interactions where Kamala talks to Bruce and they have a really cute heart-to-heart about what it's like to change and be a monster. And there's a moment where Tony and Kamala talk where Kamala's feeling a little embarrassed to really own the superhero persona, and Tony says, no, you gotta stand up and really, you are a symbol and you gotta show the bad guys that you're not scared of them. And yeah, it's super schmaltzy and it's super corny, but it's also really nice. And it's stuff like that I think you can really only get from a game like this, about these characters at this point in their lives. So, are there problems with Marvel's The Avengers? Yeah, I think a lot of them will get fixed and change over time, but still, it's not a perfect game. But I think the story, the emotional core of all of these characters, is the thing that if the game didn't get it right would make the game a complete unsalvageable mess. But I'm happy to say that it nails it. And that's why I like this game. So should you buy it? I don't know. Wait, if you're not sure, there'll be more content added and a lot of these bugs will be fixed. And a lot of the finer points of things like the raids and the hives and the exotic weapons and stuff like that, that will be worked out over time. So if you're interested but not completely sold, check back in a couple months. If you hate games like Destiny that are live service games, yeah, probably not for you. But if you're interested in a fun, nice Avengers story, this is a good game for you. Oh, and one more thing. So by now you've definitely heard me talk about Nebula. I have some new things to tell you about Nebula that is so much fun. It's a subscription streaming service made by myself, a bunch of other top educational creators on YouTube. You can watch our videos without ads, support the creators you already like, and watch Nebula original videos that only exist on Nebula. Like, for instance, there is a series called Alex Goes Bananas where Alex Nickel from Technicality talks to creators about a thing they know from their childhood, but he does not because he is much younger than us. I was on the most recent episode of that show, so I talked about Will Smith, which I know you're like, I know who Will Smith is. Yeah, but I think new Will Smith is not great. You're bright, your Suicide Squad Will Smith, but 90s Will Smith was amazing between the music, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, all that stuff. I think 90s Will Smith is one of my favorite pop cultural figures. So that is what I talked with Alex about and had him research for the video. So it is so much fun. You can watch that right now. Also, Lessons from the Screenplay made a Nebula original series called Story Mode, where they talk about storytelling in video games. They do interviews with the people that made the video games, and you get a little bit of insight into how the story for video games is written. So if you're into games, you like this Avengers game, or you're just interested in video games in general, that show is really cool. I've watched all of the episodes. I very much enjoy it. You are also probably familiar with CuriosityStream. It is a terrific subscription streaming service devoted to nonfiction programming, documentaries, stuff like that. CuriosityStream and Nebula have teamed up to create a bundle. If you sign up for CuriosityStream at the link in this description, you get a Nebula subscription for free. You can check out CuriosityStream, watch one of their series. They've got a documentary called Wild Wolverine. It's just about the actual animal Wolverine, not the comic character who knows, maybe he'll show up in the Avengers game sometime. I don't have any reason to believe he will, but maybe, or maybe a sequel. Who knows? All I'm saying is you can check out that documentary on CuriosityStream. Then you can go over to Nebula, watch the Alex Goes Bananas episode on Will Smith that I'm in, watch some episodes of Story Mode, and right now there is a 26% discount on annual plans. It is a win-win-win. So go to curiositystream.com/NandoVMovies or just click the link in this description, sign up, watch all of those things I said. They are awesome. Hey, as always, I have to give a huge thank you to everyone who continues to support the channel on Patreon. You guys are amazing. You want to see your name up here, get access to videos early, other cool stuff, watch the monthly whiteboard videos, be part of the book club, all that. Go and check out the Patreon, patreon.com/NandoVMovies. It is so helpful. You guys have no idea how much I appreciate it. Also, watch my Twitch streams, twitch.tv/NandoVMovies. If you're interested in what this Avengers game is like and what it's like to play like a really high level character, I have been playing the game and I really enjoy it. A lot of you guys have been there too. There's even like special emotes that I've made for the channel. Feel free to follow and even subscribe if you want to twitch.tv/NandoVMovies. Also, definitely check out my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking, where every week me and my friends DJ and Diggins pick apart a piece of pop culture by looking exclusively at the details. You can listen to it wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're at NitpickingPod on Twitter. And last thing, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. It's where I post updates on videos, podcasts, pictures of me fighting Warship in the Avengers game, who is everyone's favorite character and has become kind of a meme on the Twitch channel. So that's a lot of fun. That's all I got. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.